In just 2 years, the world has changed beyond recognition. A global pandemic, an energy crisis like never seen before, food shortages, climate change, and a degrading West challenged by the rising dragon of China. These and many other things are on a growing list of challenges the world has to face. With the Russian invasion of Ukraine, war is coming to Europe. And even for people not directly involved on the battlefield, the consequences will be severe. Let's answer the question: will the war spill over the borders of Ukraine? And how will the conflict affect people in the West and worldwide? Welcome to Dark New World. With the war raging in Ukraine, Russia turned itself into a pariah state. Isolated by sanctions imposed by the West and NATO, Russia is fighting for its survival. The Kremlin has to succeed with its goals in Ukraine, otherwise the paid price for its economy would be too high, and invasion with all its suffering worthless and for nothing in the eyes of the Russian population. For Vladimir Putin and his government, it's a do-or-die situation. To make things more complicated, Russia's military leadership underestimated the fierce resistance of the Ukrainian army and people. The attack is not going to plan, and both sides suffer from heavy losses. Russia has dragged itself into a corner without an exit strategy. With stakes so high, any escalation could be the start of a worldwide conflict. In the next few weeks and months, not only the people of Ukraine, but the rest of the world will feel the consequences of the fighting. Even if you live in Europe or the US, you will be directly impacted by the invasion. Food shortages. Russia and Ukraine are one of the most important exporters of grain. Ukraine exports 18, Russia almost 40 million tons of wheat per year, which is a third of all worldwide exports combined. Many importers are often poor, developing countries that are already struggling with the current situation. With exports cutting short, the danger of famine looms over the Middle East and Africa. One of the main reasons for the Arab Spring was the fallout of the financial crisis in 2008. In the following years after the crash, higher prices for food were one of the main catalysts of the uprising in Syria. The following civil wars led to the collapse of the whole region, but the fallout of the Russian-Ukrainian war will be by far higher and more impactful for the world. The global crop output is declining, while supply chain issues and inflation will make it increasingly difficult to feed all of humanity. Small and poor developing countries are already struggling with the situation. Conflicts like in Syria will flare up globally in regions dependent on food imports. Even in Europe, prices for food are skyrocketing. The declining wealth of the population will put political leadership under heavy pressure. But for Europe, that isn't even the biggest problem. Which leads to point 2. Oil and gas shortages. Russia is the main supplier of oil and gas to Europe. Over the last decades, countries like Germany made themselves increasingly dependent on Russian energy imports. With oil and gas now sanctioned, Europe faces skyrocketing prices for energy, with dramatic costs for its economy. European factories are highly dependent on energy. Cutting exports could push Germany into a recession. Alternatives to Russian gas, like LNG terminals and renewable energy, are still decades away, and Brussels is running out of options. For the developing world, the situation is much worse. Economic stagnation, paired with prices unaffordable by most third world countries, will increase the risk for internal conflicts and destabilization. One example is Sri Lanka. In March 2022, residents of the small nation have to endure 12-hour power shortages, energy rationing, and civil unrest in the streets. Other examples are Peru or the already unstable Lebanon, where one of the state banks had to declare bankruptcy last week. From here, the list will only grow. Many states that could barely hold together their defunct economies are now breaking apart. The pandemic is not completely over yet, and the world didn't recover from worldwide lockdowns. Especially oil and grain importing countries will be affected the most. Conflicts will erupt, eventually leading into civil wars. This will add to the worldwide pressure and instability, and bigger and stronger nations will use that to their advantage. This brings me to the last point, the forming of 2 blocs. Asia is rising and the West is in decline, at least so it seems. The conflict in Ukraine pushed Russia closer to Beijing. While Southeast Asia is resisting China's influence for now, the dispute over the South China Sea shows that Beijing is clearly getting stronger. Like Ukraine, a conflict could arise over the nation of Taiwan in the near future. Beijing wants to reunify the small island nation into its territory before 2049, while the West promises to defend Taiwan from any aggression. With each day passing, it looks like the lines are getting drawn on the globe. Both sides are using the "you're either with us or with them" argument to pull smaller countries on their side. With the pressure and problems these countries face, most will simply not have a choice but to get into the red or blue bloc. But let's not forget that this could lead to a direct conflict between NATO, China and Russia. Unfortunately, we're seeing all possible warning signs that we are heading into this direction. While most people want to forget the last 2 years and go back to normal, almost no one can see that there are more clouds ahead. The sheer amount of problems the world is facing is the biggest threat to humanity since World War II. But today, we live in an interconnected, globalized world, and war and economic downfall will affect everyone on the planet. China is fighting for the lead role in the world, and the US will not give up that position. The next 20 years will change humanity forever. And after 30 years, humanity has to fear nuclear annihilation again. We are entering turbulent times. Unlike in the past, society has changed with technology and is connected worldwide. The way we live has changed so dramatically over the past 30 years that predictions cannot be made and outcomes are completely unknown unless you look very close and connect topics that seem at first hand completely unrelated. How exactly changed social media and big tech companies our daily life? What implications does it have on geopolitics? What role does Instagram have on the economy of the United Arab Emirates? And what will happen to Europe when inflation doesn't get under control? These and other topics will be all discussed here. This is a brand new YouTube channel and I'm very happy you found this place. We will talk about the coming storm, where we are going, and that not only politics, but our social structure and the way of life is maybe moving into a wrong direction. If you want to support this channel and be part of it, then please subscribe and like the video. Especially for a new channel, this can make a huge difference. My name is Dennis and I hope to see you next time. Thank you and goodbye.